What's up, guys? It's your boy Cali Katana. Today, yes, I had to bite the bullet. Sometimes a man has to do things that they don't really want to do, but you know, you just have to swallow your pride. And today I had to take my wife's bike because I need that wind. I need to ride. So I had to bite the bullet, guys. I had to do it. I took her bike because my bike is still down. Still gotta get the clutch fixed. So, you know, I gotta get some wind. I gotta get some wind. So I got the Sparkle bike today. I'm gonna make a video about the bike, maybe today or whatever, about the process on how this bike became and where it came from. But this video, I'm going to talk about something different. This video, I'm going to talk about buying a bike. You know, there's thousands of videos of people, you know, talking about, you know, what kind of bike to buy and all these things. And it's about that time. It's about that time that people are starting to go buying bikes, and they're starting to, you know, look into bikes because tax time. So, you know, I'm going to give you some quick tips on what you need to do to buy a good, decent bike. And, you know, the history I've had so far with bikes has been pretty good. I really haven't had a bike that either messed up or that, you know, I got and was just like a total loss, because, you know, you never take a loss. So here's a couple of, you know, things you need to think about. First, you need to think about the kind of bike you want. What kind of bike you want, not what everybody thinks you should have. There's a lot of people who will give you misguided information about what you should get. You got to be careful about those people, because those same people are the ones who are going to be sitting there when something happens, or, you know, or it's too much bike for you and you end up crashing. They're the same ones saying, well, you shouldn't have bought the bike, it was too powerful, you should have known better. But yet you're the one who was encouraging him to get the bike. Also, another thing too is make sure you don't get a bike that's out of your price range. Never buy out of your price range. Never, ever buy out of your price range. The last thing you want to do is make a $300 bike note. That's insane. That is insane to pay that much money for a bike a month. You know, you want to keep your payments low, because also you gotta you know, also look into the fact that insurance is going to be high too. Depends on your age and your driving history, obviously, but it's also, you know, your age and and you know, how you ride and stuff like that. But your insurance might be sky high, so you got to be careful on what kind of bike you get. And don't fall for these people on YouTube or anything like that to tell you, you know, oh, you should do this, you should do that. No, don't do that. You know, I would say, like, listen, you know, watch Chase, you know, who rides multiple bikes, right? You know, watch Cycle Cruiser, watch some guys who've actually, like, will give you good sound advice about what kind of bike you get, because a lot of people out on the bike life, they give you the most stupidest advice ever. You know, they like, you know, especially people who are like, oh, I love to do wheelies. Well, that's great if you love to do wheelies, but that doesn't mean necessarily I want to do wheelies, because they're like, oh, well, you need to get that F-09, F-07, you know, that's a wheelie machine. Yeah, that's great if you want to do wheelies, but if you don't, then you don't need that kind of bike. You know, it's a really tricky subject to talk about, because there's just so many variables. There's so many, you know, different ways you got to look at it. But I would say like this, okay? One rule of thumb is you should always do the research about the bike that you want to get. First of all, you found the bike you want. So, you know, there's many ways by doing that, you know, by watching reviews. Hell, going to bike demos. That's the best way to find the bike that you want to get, is by going to demos. Because if you go to a demo and see like a 2019, you know, Gixxer 750, and you like the style, the fit, the ride, and all those things like that, then you can, you know, go back and get an older, you know, Gixxer 750 and be okay with that, instead of like buying a brand new bike or buying a bike and be like, oh, well, maybe I should have, you know, rode something first before I, you know, decide to buy it. Another way too is, I know it's like it's like a bad thing to do, but, you know, maybe borrow a friend's bike. You know, if you got really good friends and you just want to ride it like down the street or something like that, you know, just got to get a feel for it a little bit, then, you know, that's okay too. You know, but it's just between, you know, it's just depends on your friend, you know what I'm saying, and what he, you know, what he thinks, or he's okay with that. Another thing you have to do is look at what it costs to fix stuff with, okay? Like when you go buy a bike, you know, you should think, okay, if I go buy a Yamaha and say I need fairings, or say I'm going to need a clutch, or I'm going to need, you know, this or that, or whatever, look at the price of their parts, and, you know, and how hard it is to fix it. Because you don't want to get a bike where if you buy the bike, say you could buy an Aprilia or something like that, or Ducati, you know, man, the oil changes alone going to run you about $200. So really think about, you know, the maintenance, and how much maintenance will cost on a bike, because that will go into the factor of how much you want to pay for a bike. Because you don't want to buy a bike and then find out the maintenance costs are astronomical and you can't even afford to, you know, change something, because, you know, you're spending all your money on a bike payment and insurance and can't fix it because you don't have the money. You know, you got to think about those. Also, guys, look into, when you buy a bike, try to your best, okay, your best to bring somebody with you that knows about bikes maybe more than you do, and see what he thinks of it. Let him go over the bike. Let him, you know, find the good things, the bad things, and all that. Because actuality, if you bring somebody who knows about bikes with you, he can actually help you get the bike for cheaper, because he might see things that even the owner doesn't even know is wrong. And so, you know, it's a good thing to do that. You know, it's a good thing to bring somebody. Also for safety reason too, you know, because you never know. There's a lot of people who rob people out in this world. So, you know, you want to make sure that, you know, you're safe. So, yeah, I would definitely have somebody. And even if you need to, bring it to a shop. I'll put it like this, okay? If you have the opportunity to bring it to a shop and have them look over it, and the person is telling you no, you can't do that, or no, or is really adamant about you not, you know, doing something like that, or even having some mechanic look at it, then you need to walk away, because obviously he's trying to scam you or something like that. So I would actually walk away. I've done that before. I brought people with me, and the guy's like, oh, no, you can't, only you gotta look, you know, you can't bring somebody, you know, mechanic or nothing like that. Then I say, okay, great, thank you for your time, I'm out, peace, you know. So, you know, you want to also look at that too. Another thing too is when you're starting to buy a bike, right, think about your finances. You know, think about, you know, don't put a financial burden on your family for a hobby. You know, number one important thing in your life should be your family, and you should never take food off the table from your family. You know, trying to, you know, be cool and get the new and try to be flashy and all that to impress your friends, they're not really going to be impressed. Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, nice car, but I mean, not car, but nice bike. But at the end of the day, when they see, when you're at home and they're gone riding and you can't even ride your bike. I've seen cats, honestly, who's bought a very expensive ass bike but worked so much that they can't even ride the bike because they're paying for the bike. So they're like literally not even enjoying their investment. So it's kind of like, what's the point? You know, I'd rather get a cheap ass bike and ride it all summer long and, you know, work my normal hours than having to work overtime and all that to keep a bike that nobody's really impressed about. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy, guys. It's crazy. Another thing too is, when you're going to look for a bike, okay, I always think of this rule of thumb, and this should be like one of the biggest rule of thumbs when it comes to buying a motorcycle. When you buy a bike, especially a used bike, now I'm not saying new bikes because that's a whole different, you know, subject, but when you're buying a used bike, always think about this, and this is my number one thing I think about. If I don't like this bike, or something happens where it's like, you know, it breaks down, or something that, you know, just, you know, that it's not quite right, but, you know, it could be good. It could be good. You know, it could be an awesome bike. But you never know. Never, ever go upside down when you're buying a bike, like price-wise, okay? I always look at this. If I buy a bike and say if it doesn't work out, I should be able to know that, okay, if this bike does not work out, when I sell it, I will either make money or I will come out even. That's the only way I will buy anything if I look at a situation and say, okay, this bike is this much, if it's broke down or it doesn't really work, or I don't like the ride of it or whatever, I will get my money back and make profit. And if you keep that as your rule of thumb, you will always come out ahead, because when you do that, it helps you prepare for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you won't be like one of those guys who will spend like $2,000 on a bike, find out it's crappy, and then turn around and have to sell it and only get $1,000 for it. That would suck. So I wouldn't do that if I was you. And another thing, okay, I'm just kind of rambling on top of my head right now, but another thing too is you have to look at, like, when you look at price wise, I think of two different things. Okay, if you have $3,000 for a bike, you have two options in my eyes. You have one option where if you buy a newer bike, it had to be a lower cc. So if you bought a bike for $3,000 and you bought a 1000, it might be a 2001, 2002. But if you bought a older bike, no, if you bought a newer bike, then you might have to have lower cc. So you might buy a 2015 for what, you know, what, that's a 600 cc or 400 cc. So you have to look at like that as a thing where, you know, when you look at a price, you know, what's more important to you? The higher the, you know, the cc's, the bigger the bike, or the newer the bike, you know, plus mileage. But that's, you know, that's also, you know, factor into it as well. But, you know, it just, you got to think about it, guys. Just think about, you know, before you start buying, do your research. Always do your research, guys. I don't want to see people getting screwed out here by people, because people will screw you quick, fast, and in a hurry. All right, guys, I'm out of here, and I'm about to head to work. So sparkle out. Peace.